Wishes well doing, and welcome back to After They Found Atlantis. Today's video, Solon of the Hellenes. We're following Solon in his life. Maybe he can lead us to some clues to Atlantis. So let's get started. It is likely that there were many catastrophic floods in ancient Greece. But was Thera's violent destruction in 1600 BC the origin of the myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha? Zeus was cleansing mankind with a massive flood. He let Deucalion and Pyrrha survive because of their never-ending piety. Their ship grounded on a great mountaintop in Greece. Their son Helen, it was said, fathered all the principal nations of Greece, and so they became the Hellenes. After the mysterious Bronze Age collapse, the Hellenes floundered in a Dark Age. But by around 900 BC, some structure was returning to their world. Polises, or city-states, were growing all over Greece. Solon's Athens was located in a prosperous region called Attica. The men in Attica prided themselves on being free, but they were ruled by wealthy aristocrats called archons. By the 600s BC, Attica was growing in turmoil. This is about the time Solon entered the world. The free men had chosen a tyrant to lead a revolt. The revolt failed, and the archons severely punished the rebels. Numerous blood feuds caused harsh laws to be created called draconian laws. Even minor infractions were being punished by death. Family farms had always been divided up and passed down from father to sons. But after generations, the smaller farms weren't producing enough crops. The farmers were borrowing money and having their lots seized. To pay off their debts to the landowners, they sold themselves into slavery. The wealthy grew even more rich as agriculture declined. Solon was fortunate as he was born an aristocrat in Athens. It is said his father gave generously to those in need. Solon planned to be a poet. He grew up with Pisistratus and Dropides, who were close family friends. But soon the family had given away a lot of the estate, so Solon gave up writing and became a trader. He started work in the Mediterranean, exporting and importing goods. Although his talent for poetry would never be left far from his side, Solon found poetry as a way to entertain himself. He also used verses to convey ideas to others. He sailed all over the Mediterranean, restoring his family's wealth. Solon cultivated a lifelong love of learning. He shed his Attic views for a wider perspective. He became a man of knowledge, experience, and influence. Solon returned to his troubled homeland. There were deep divisions between the rich and the poor. The aristocrats feared the poor would revolt again. The poor were still incensed about the persecuted rebels. Socially and economically, this community was on the brink of disaster, for there was one issue that could incite all-out rebellion. For a time, those in Attica had fought their neighbors the Megara for a small island near Athens called Salamis. The aristocrats had mishandled the issue, and the struggle was ended. Many young men and farmers in Attica still wanted to fight for the much-needed extra farmable land. But the aristocrats ruled the issue over and forbid any support for the cause, which was punishable by death. Solon could see the crisis at hand, so he decided to act. It is said rumors were spread that Solon had gone insane. Solon then appeared in the agora, or the marketplace, when it was very full. Many aristocrats and others swarmed to hear him speak. It is said that he sang a very well-written poem over 100 verses long, encouraging the public of their historic rights to Salamis. It was so inspiring that the crazy man was forgiven for breaking the law, which Pisistratus helped repeal. Soon after, a renewed effort was made to conquering the island, and the recovered Solon was placed in charge. One account has Solon splitting his modest force into two divisions. One approached Salamis by sea and captured a Megarian ship. The other force, led by Solon, attacked the Megarian stronghold. The Megarians were drawn out to fight as the captured ship sailed into the port. Soon the Megarians were overrun. Afterwards, there was a short period of skirmishing back and forth. until finally both sides became reluctant to fight anymore. It was agreed that Sparta would handle the arbitration. Solon put his best case forward to the Spartans, and they ruled that the Athenians had the historical rights to Salamis. After returning to Athens, Solon found himself a popular statesman. Shortly after, Solon encouraged the defense of the oracle at Delphi, which was coming under attack. A united army made of Greek city-states successfully defended the sacred site. After the victory, Solon gained high regards in all the city-states in Greece. A relative calm ensued, but it wasn't very long before old suspicions began to arise. The wealthy and the poor threatened all-out open confrontation. The hill tribes wanted a democratic rule. The people of the plains wanted a traditional rule of oligarchy, and those of the sea remained neutral. The people wanted someone who could reconcile the factions. They grew tired of the feuding and the constant warring. Solon was elected sole archon. The poor felt he wasn't responsible for their problems, and the rich felt he was one of them. Solon, it is said, was reluctant to take this charge, because he disagreed with any kind of tyranny. But he also saw it as an opportunity to use his best judgment on what needed to be done. And there was a lot of work that needed to be done. One of the first things that Solon did was make it illegal to use bodies as mortgage. Creditors could no longer enslave a man or his family. All mortgage slaves were liberated. Those who had been sold and sent to foreign lands were allowed to come home free. Solon called this the lifting of burdens. All outstanding debts were to be forgiven or reduced. All mortgages on land, for the most part, disappeared. As the reforms took hold, neither the rich nor poor were happy. The poor wanted all of their lands back, and the rich wanted what was owed to them. Most who supported him before now had begun to change their minds. But after time came success. The rich realized they still had the upper classes, and the poor were reinvigorated with having their farms beginning to produce again. After these good results, Solon was appointed general reformer of their laws. He started working. He repealed the draconian law, saving the death penalty for the most severe crimes. Next, Solon swiftly enacted laws forbidding fathers to split their farmlands up amongst their sons. Rather, only one heir was to receive the land. All other sons were to be taught a trade. Migrating artisans to Athens were causing shortages on produce. So Solon balanced the food supply by creating strict trading laws forbidding all exported produce besides olive oil. Solon redefined the currency, introducing coinage. He also redefined the seasons by synchronizing to the cycles of the new moon. Solon saw he could not change the power structure in Athens as it was well entrenched. But he realized if the concerns of the masses were not met, they would support a tyrant and overthrow the aristocracy. So he tiptoed his way, balancing change and tradition, giving not the best laws, but the best laws they all could receive. Solon brought the Greek world and early constitutionalism. He made it so the masses would have an impact on their government. He split the population into classes according to their incomes, which were to be reported yearly. Solon felt strongly that the rich or the poor should seek justice as if the wrong had been done to themselves. So he created a lower court of jurors. These individuals were chosen from all classes by lots. The court had the power to appeal laws, and it was required for the archons, after serving their terms, they were to submit their records to the court. To make the laws available to all, Solon had them displayed on wooden rollers called axons in public places. The laws were there for everyone to see, and even the rich were held accountable. Farms started producing a surplus of foodstuff, and Solon encouraged the arts and crafts. He launched the Athenians into the Aegean Sea marketplace. He also offered free citizenship to foreign artisans. Time went by as Solon kept issuing reforms. He feared that the masses, after tasting a little democracy, would crave more and eventually support a tyrant. However, the main business of his concern was constantly helping those who needed counsel on the particulars of his laws. Solon purposely left most of his laws open to interpretation. But in this, Solon found himself besieged daily. It was time for him to move on. He had made many unhappy along the way, but most were begging him to stay Archon. Solon, a true statesman, refused. He arranged to leave Athens for 10 years. In this time period, his laws were agreed to remain in place. He also created a law requiring the factions to choose a political position before a revolt, thereby making it impossible for a faction to wait and side up with the victors. Even a rebellion became more of a democratic choice. Solon was to leave for a decade. It is said he purchased a trade vessel and sailed to Egypt. Solon sailed to the Egyptian shore called Canopus. From there he went to the city of Heliopolis. He studied there for a while. Next he followed the river Nile to the district of Sais, finally stopping in the district's namesake, the city of Sais. Here it is said that Solon learned the history of Atlantis. He felt he should make the Greeks aware, so he recorded it down into a poem. Solon sailed onward. He traveled to Cyprus, an island south of Turkey. There he was well received by King Philocyprus of this hillside city of Apia. The king was seeking Solon's advice on governance. He told Solon the city was well situated, but there was some difficulty in accessing it. Solon suggested relocating the entire city in the plains below. The king was persuaded, and Solon helped in the creation of the new city. First, they built the city's defenses. Then they concentrated on the buildings made for the conveniences of living. Many flocked to the new city, which inspired much inspiration. King Philocyprus renamed the city Soli, after the popular lawgiver. Eventually, Solon leaves Cyprus. He stopped in Lydia for a while before heading back to Athens. Older now, Solon is greeted and honored by his countrymen. They had kept his reforms in place, but they were still quarreling amongst each other. Solon at this time no longer possessed the vigor to publicly participate in the struggles of the classes. Solon fell witness to a ploy by his relative and once friend Pisistratus. Pisistratus faked an attack and injury on himself to win the support of the lower classes versus the opposition party. Pisistratus eventually became what Solon feared, a tyrant. Solon adamantly disapproved and was not afraid to vocalize his opinions. Many thought Pisistratus would seek retribution, but he did not. Solon's laws were well instilled, and Pisistratus kept most of them intact. He even sought Solon's advice and revered him as tyrant. Solon, it is said, lived for 80 years. He died on the island of Cyprus. Later, his ashes were scattered over the island of Salamis. Solon lived a very remarkable life. It can be seen how he became one of the 7 wise Greeks of ancient times. And Solon was dead, but his association with Atlantis lived on.